Oh, he scored! Oh my God! Can you believe it? Johnny Bench has tied it up. The Cincinnati Reds win the World Series in 4 straight. It was a sweep.
In the dirt, it's a wild pitch. Here comes Walker. The Reds win the pennant.
Larkins won the game.
That ball is fair. Cincinnati's ahead. 2 games to none.
Welcome, Joe Randa to Cincinnati. Adam Dunn has done it again.
Benzinger backing and calling. And the 1990 World Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds.
Marty, yes. This is Adam from Milwaukee. Hey, Adam, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? Good. Do you think Scott Chatterbox is a good player?
Dunn up there with the bases loaded, the outfield deep and around toward right, and the 1-0 on the way to the plate. Swung on, long drive, right field, and this one belongs to the Reds.
And a high drive, hit back into deep right field. Junior has just knocked the door down to the 500 club.
Benson's first home run is a walk-off winner. That ball had a family.
And De La Cruz is, oh my goodness, look at this kid run. My, oh my, that is a triple.
Matt McClain's first big league bomb.
Spencer Steer's first big league hit is a home run to straightaway center field. Joey Votto's done it again.
The pitch. Votto swings high in the air. Right field. Yes! He pointed to the dugout to say, I told you. That is Joey Votto's 315th career go-ahead ribby. Only Johnny Bench had more as a Red.
And I can't tell you how much it means to play in front of everyone here in Cincinnati as a Red. What a gift. What a tremendous gift. So thank you. Thank you.
I think I can speak for all of Reds country. Joey Votto, thank you.
High drive. Left center field. Racing back to the wall. Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did! He did! Reds win! Win! Liner to right field. Genius, the first Red ever. With 4 home runs in a game. Can you believe it? In the air, down the right field line. Doesn't have a chance. The Reds have won on a 3-run home run on opening day by Ramon Hernandez. A strike away and out away is Homer Bailey. Ground ball to third. Frazier gloves. Throw to first, and Homer Bailey, for the second time in his major league career, has tossed a no-hitter. Oh, God. Are you kidding me? Holy moly, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air, and the Reds win it. What a dream beginning to a career of Jay Bruce.
Well, hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome to a very special edition of Chatterbox Reds here over the All-Star break. Nick Kirby, Craig Sandlin, Bryce Spalding, and Mitch, a.k.a. Reds in 4. Going to talk a little bit of Reds baseball here on this Wednesday night, kind of in between the All-Star game and the start of the second half. Let's go around the room first. Craig, we'll start with you. How you doing, my friend?
We're good. Happy Wednesday. Today is Topps Chrome Baseball Release Day, chasing Ellie De La Cruz rookie cards. So it's been a busy, fun day for me, and excited to chat some Reds baseball.
Bryce Spalding, I know you've been a busy man the last couple of days with the baseball draft. We'll get to that here in just a second. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Felt good to breathe a little bit today and reflect on the last couple of days. But yeah, excited for Friday.
And my man Mitch, how's our Wednesday night going, my friend?
It's good to be here, Nick. Wish we were on better terms. Wish the Reds were rolling in a little stronger, but we'll take 47 and 50 at the break. It's we'll do what we can do. Still here.
All I know is 5-2 in the last 7. I don't really care about anything else. So, no offense, Mitch. Bryce, let's start with you. Let's give your 10,000 feet or whatever overview of the MLB draft. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it tonight, but we talked obviously a lot about Chase Burns, and I'll get the other two guys' opinions on Chase Burns because we already talked about that. But kind of after the pick number 1, what was kind of your overall thoughts and maybe who stood out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I thought they did well. I thought it's always hard to grade a draft initially. I think everybody feels good about kind of who they got and where you got them. But I thought they did really well in the comp round there, getting the high school shortstop from Nebraska. I think he's going to sign already. I think it's already pretty much done from what I've heard. So that's exciting. He was a top 40 prospect by most. So getting him at 51, buying him down a little bit was a nice get. Mike Sirota in the third, I think, is a first-round talent by pretty much everybody that had watched him play. So that was a really nice grab in the third round. He did fall a little bit, which you're always nervous about fallers, but fantasy football terms, you always take fallers, and they normally work out. So feel good about him as well. And then I thought they added some high floor guys throughout the draft, high ceiling guys. They added a Puerto Rican high school kid, a pitcher in the 11th round who I really like, that I'm pretty excited about. I think he's going to be able to progress and grow into his body a little bit more, only 18 years old. So, yeah, I just think that the Reds, they've kind of getting to the point where we just have to trust them in this kind of stuff. Since 2021, they've drafted extremely well. And I think that they kind of get the benefit of the doubt on some of these picks where they may see something we don't, that they may view a guy a little bit higher than maybe consensus. And a lot of times that's worked out for them. So, yeah, I think that obviously the top of your draft is always going to be determined kind of how good or bad it was. But I do think the Reds added some guys that can contribute kind of down the road here.
Mitch, what was your thoughts on the Reds' top pick, Chase Burns, and then anyone else stand out to you from this draft class?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess prior to the draft, I put out that I personally thought the two best players were Bazana and Burns when it first came out. I get the love for Condon, and I get like the need for a big bat in the lineup. I just, and I'm not a draft guy as much as Bryce is, but I just hadn't heard nearly as much about Condon coming up and felt a little bit pop-up-y to me. The home road splits were a little strange. And then I think you kind of saw the draft come together in a larger way as you saw those signings come in. I think the shortstop they took in the late first, you saw his bonus came in like well over slot. So I don't think Burns was necessarily an under slot pick, but I think it helped set that up a little bit as well. But I mean, from my perspective, as someone who loves pitching, like I couldn't be more thrilled with Chase Burns. I mean, that dude is going to light up the Stuff Plus notes. He's going to light up the system. And I mean, the big thing is just, control. And the numbers say he's going to be able to control the ball well. It's the mechanics that people seem to have an issue with. And hand up, I'm not your guy for that. So I'm excited. I think the Reds know what they're doing there, and we'll see how it all works out.
So, Craig, the Reds go with the pitcher over Charlie Condon. What was your thoughts on that part of the decision?
Well, I think that we've seen the Reds invest in starting pitching via the draft for a number of years. That's not new. I think that when you look at the draft this year, there was a really widespread tier one. There were a lot of players that a lot of people thought that they were top of the draft level talent. But there was one pitcher that stood out to nearly every pundit that you talked about as the number one pitcher in the draft, and the Reds walk away with him. And so, it was interesting. Matt Edie put out a tweet today. I don't know if you guys saw it, but if you look at the Reds' top 6 WAR totals this year, they're compiled by players who have all debuted since 2021, and most of them were top draft picks by the organization. So Hunter Green, Ellie De La Cruz, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Jonathan India, Spencer Steer. So I'm in the boat where I say whatever you want about this front office's ability to sign free agents, about making trades. The one thing that I think we can all agree upon is that they've been pretty good in the draft, and I'm going to reserve any judgment until we see otherwise.
Yeah, last 2 times the Reds had picked the first pitcher in the draft was Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. Overall, I think those are panning out decently at this stage. But we got a couple questions. I'm going to save most of our questions for the end. So if there's any additional questions, we'll do a little bit of Q&A if you guys have any questions at the end. But since I did see a couple questions that were draft related, let's go ahead and knock those out now. We'll start off with our friend Chris R. And Bryce, I'll start with you, and then Mitch, jump in if you have any thoughts on this. Chris says, what is your biggest Reds draft disappointment, and why is it missing out on Corey Collins?
Yeah, that's mine and Chris's guy, Corey Collins. He hit in front of Condon all year, and he posted like a 1,400 OPS. So I think he's going to be a nice pick. He got picked up by the Mets in like the 6th round, I think. He's dealt with some injuries. But, yeah, I really would have liked to grab him. Disappointment, I guess. I was a Condon guy from the get-go in February. But I think I presented myself enough to where I understand the Chase Burns pick from the Reds' perspective, to where, like, I wasn't disappointed by it. I think everybody saw my reaction live. I was happy. I was happy with the pick. I thought that they know more than we do, and I think that they had a really good grasp on where Burns can go and where he can do things. And I don't even think it's a for sure thing they would have taken Condon. So, JJ Weatherholt was there. They liked Pizzana. I know that. So, who even knows if they would have taken Condon? So, I guess maybe the biggest disappointment is not grabbing like a super high level college bat, but I think Mike Sirota can fit that bill as he kind of grows and progresses into his career, though.
Mitch, did you have any thoughts on this?
In terms of disappointments, like nothing really stands out. They seem to have, there's a trend with the type of hitters that they targeted. They went after really patient hitters who knew the zone really well. Didn't really post like the most overwhelming like exit velocities for like having metal bats. A lot of guys set in a good range in their 90th percentile, but it would have been nice to get like one of those little Reese Hines flyers there in the middle, like somebody could just kind of mash a baseball and, luck into a hot streak in the system. But overall, I thought they went for really projectable players, and that's worked out for them really well. Pitching wise, they have some really interesting pitchers they went after that I'm interested in watching. A few like mid to low 90s guys with a ton of ride on their fastballs that I'm interested to see how they work. I don't know enough about them to say whether it will or not, but there's a growing trend in the game today with those kind of pitchers working out. So, in terms of disappointments, I think all the grades have come in really strong. I'm not overly disappointed about anything, but no, it was a fun, interesting draft.
I think it's worth pointing out you brought it up, Mitch, that the Reds went with patient hitters. I don't know about you all, but like the expectation from my perspective is that ABS is coming and it's coming soon, whether that's a complete automated ball strike system or if that's just a challenge system or whatever that may be, it's coming. And we've seen it with guys like Jacob Hurtubise who have talked about how they've learned the zone in the minor leagues because of that ABS system. And so, for having some patient guys in the system now that they're drafting this year and having them be able to work their way through, by the time ABS makes its way to the majors, the Reds have really valued getting on base. And so I wouldn't be surprised for that trend to continue to move forward as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Craig. And the Reds were certainly ahead of the trend on speed. And, they made a clear effort to get more athletic. And whether they lucked into that or not, they beat the trend and they've fully taken advantage of the rules that have made it more intuitive for base stealing. So it's just see if that happens again. Our good friend Harrow asked a question. Mitch, you pretty much said you didn't want to answer this, so I'm just going to go straight to Bryce. Burns throwing unconventionally, is that a concern at all to you, Bryce?
I don't know. I think everyone that kind of pigeonholes themselves into pitching mechanics, there's so many different ways to complete throwing a baseball. You just look at who has success in the big leagues. There's nobody that throws the same. You look at the All-Star game, Skeens is here, Logan Webb's here. All these different guys throw from different angles and different motions and the way they do things. So I think it's fine. He's been healthy in his career. I think I saw somebody say that was a negative thing, and I'm like, I mean, he's thrown almost 200 innings in college, and he hasn't been hurt. So I think that that's a positive thing. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be the concern that he has Tommy John, but it's a whole heck of a lot easier to come back from your first Tommy John than your second. So I think that that's just a risk you got to take with a guy like Burns, who is so electric and he does throw so hard that there's always going to be injury risk. There's going to be injury risk with no matter who you take there, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, really.
All right. One last draft question from our good friend Carrick. Do you think any of these college position players will get to play in Daytona this season? Any pitchers? It's a good question.
I would say no on the pitchers for sure. Louder threw like 120 innings last year, and they shut him down as soon as he was drafted. So I would say no on the pitchers. Hitter-wise, I would think so. I think we'd probably see a college hitter or two make their debut. I know the ACL season ends in like 8 days, so we won't see him there. But I do think that we could probably see Daytona, maybe even Dayton. I mean, they took a couple college bats that I feel like could probably be okay there. So, yeah, I feel like we would probably see 4 or 5 guys make their debuts this year.
And they did that last year with a couple college bats. Connor Burns, I think, came at the end of this. Yeah, they all got to play. Maybe Bryce, we see like the Paul Skeens, where he threw like 5 innings in the minor leagues last year. They just give you a taste of Birds. Maybe they'll do that for Chattanooga because they've had such a rough year. We'll throw you the number 2 pick. We'll give you one start. You can have one good night. That would be kind of a fun way to go about it. All right. Well, we're going to get to our preseason predictions, see kind of where things stand. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, whether you're live on YouTube, on Twitter, or on Instagram. We do post-game shows after every single Reds game live on YouTube, so we'd love for you to join us for that. We also have a podcast that's available every single morning, pretty much all summer. I say the morning after every Reds game, but I don't think we've missed a podcast since the start of spring training, so we'll see how that continues. Maybe it will depend a little bit how the Reds second half goes. Before we get to that, I want to make sure we tell you about our proud presenting sponsor, and that is Deep South Commodities. DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production. They specialize in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks, as always, to our friends at DSC. All right, so our preseason predictions. Let's start off. First off, I crushed the Matt McClain prediction. Sorry. Oh, I got to move my camera up like a half a head here. Oh, we're doing this. It might be a little off center, but that's okay. So yeah, I mean, Matt McClain, whatever. That's kind of a wash. Although I did think I said his injury concerns was maybe a reason why I took the under, but to each their own. Jeimer Candelario, he's had a 108 OPS plus right now. The Zips preseason prediction was 113. So right now, me and Bryce are on the correct side there, but the way Jeimer Candelario has played, I'm not feeling great about that prediction. Let's start with you, Craig. What's your thoughts on Jeimer Candelario's first season here in Cincinnati?
Well, I mean, I think we all know that Jeimer Candelario got off to a pretty rough start. Since that start, though, since May 8th, which is a pretty significant amount of time, not a short period of time, his OPS is 827 during that time period. So, I certainly expect his OPS plus to continue to rise as his OPS continues to go up. I'm feeling pretty good about having the lone wolf over on Jeimer Candelario's OPS plus right now. He's on pace for like career numbers in terms of home runs and RBIs. So watch out.
Bryce?
Yeah, I'm not feeling great. Not feeling great about that one. I think he's definitely trending upwards on that, but he's another guy too who's super streaky. I mean, we've seen it. I think he was down to a 99 OPS plus right before he had a couple home runs this last series. So I think he's just going to keep going up and down. He may fall. Hopefully he falls on the higher side of that 110 mark there, but I think he's just going to be right in that range there. So we may even get a push on 113. Who knows?
Ooh, that's possible. Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, it blows my mind that the inventor of Zips raked this signing over the coals so much that, like, imagine Jeimer Candelaria if he was playing to a 113 OPS right now, like he was projected. Like, he's felt like a lifesaver with a 108 OPS plus. So, I'm rooting to be wrong on this one. The underlying signs look good. I think he's going to walk more in the second half. That's one thing that's kind of lagging compared to his years prior. So, I'd be happy to be wrong here.
Oh, I didn't see that you were under 2. I'm having to squint a little bit. So yeah, Craig's the only one that's over. So, but yeah, I mean, pretty much, I guess, like, really, all things considered, Jeimer Candelaria has been exactly who we thought he was going to be, and it was weird, the disdain for that signing, because again, like, I just don't think you had a very good pulse of where the Reds' overall team was in their team building if you thought Jeimer Candelaria was a bad signing. Elly De La Cruz, the over-under was 23 home runs. I think when we were looking through, that was the most challenging of his projections to have, like, something on, because, like, we all knew pretty much every other projection he was going to smash. Maybe we should have done average. That, I don't even know what that was, but maybe that would have been the closest one. But Elliott, 17 home runs here at the All-Star break. The question is, will he break the Zips over under before, like, mid-August, or not really, probably at this point. But Mitch, I'll go right back to you. Elly De La Cruz. I mean, I don't really know what more there is to say about Elly other than just what an incredible year. He's in the All-Star game, getting hits in the All-Star game. Just what an awesome season.
Yeah, he's been incredible. I think there's even more ceiling to be tapped into on his power. A lot of his home runs have been to dead center and oppo. If he starts pulling the ball, and don't get me wrong, I love Elly's plate approach right now. I wouldn't change a thing, but if he starts pulling baseballs, like, I still don't think we've seen, like, that nuclear hot streak where Elly just homers and homers and homers. Like, it's been a lot of extra base hits so far. So feeling good about that one.
Bryce?
Yeah, at this point, I just hope he gets to 30. If he can go 30-70 in his first full year in the big leagues, my God, he's incredible. That's all you got to say. He's just so fun to watch every day.
Greg?
Yeah, I mean, we went however long it was between insane seasons like that, and then last year we get Ronald Acuna, who goes 73 and 41, and now here we are. We're talking about Elly De La Cruz competing to try and match and surpass some of those numbers. I don't think he'll get to 40 home runs, obviously, but certainly 73 steals is well within reach. And if you pair that with 30 home runs, I mean, we're talking about a season that hasn't been done before in Major League Baseball. So I think, people will certainly complain about his batting average and all of those things. But the one thing that I think we all can agree on is that Elly De La Cruz provide the electricity that this city can rally around for this team. And if they can kind of go on some runs here in the second half, along with Elly continuing his streak of phenomenal baseball, then we'll see some big crowds in the second half in Cincinnati for sure.
And sorry, I should have clarified. Zips, we did this show before the season started. Zips is the most popular projection system, so they project every single thing that a player will do. Average on-base percentage, slugging, home runs, stolen bases, wins above replacement, everything out there. We tried to find the most interesting stat for each player and try to do an over-under on them. For example, like Elly De La Cruz's over-under stolen bases was like 30 or something, and I think we all knew he was going to beat that. And so we tried to find ones that were the most controversial, or at least had some that would have both of us on one side or the other. So that's kind of what that is. TJ Friedl, 101 OPS was his projection. He's at 88. He only has 111 plate appearances. So we all hit the over. I think there's still a good chance if he is actually able to come back here in a couple weeks. Like the Reds are hoping. The Reds did say he went down to the Arizona Complex League over the All-Star break and is working. So that's great to see. Be awesome if maybe he gets into a game down there. I don't know if we'll see that or not, but he should be back soon. And, TJ Friedl's the kind of player that he could have 3 weeks and kind of get that back over that 101. On to Spencer Steer. This is maybe the most interesting one because right now he's actually over He currently has a 115 OPS plus. His projection was 112, but his OPS is down like 40 points. So it kind of, Spencer Steers maybe the poster child of how baseball is this year. That I think the OPS across baseball is down 25 points this year. So right now, Bryce and Reds in 4 are correct. I really wish I would have done OPS and not OPS plus. I think it was you, Mitch, that cornered me into that. I wanted to do OPS, but we switched to OPS plus. And if it would have been OPS, I would have been hammering this right now. But no, interesting year for Spencer Steer, Craig.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year, and we've talked about him on the show a lot. I mean, a guy that has been super consistent and has come up in big moments. I don't know how sustainable it is or not. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, to your point, I mean, he's not even, his numbers are slightly down year over year. His projection. Oh shoot, it's not there. I thought it was going to be there. But long story short, I mean, Spencer Steer has been one of the cornerstones of the offense, the one guy that you can kind of rely on. And, I think we can all agree that that's, he's been nice to have in the lineup day in and day out. And realistically, with the injuries that we've had, if we didn't have Spencer Steer, I don't know where this team would be.
Bryce?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's well on his way to going over that number 2, because if you look at his month by month, I think that's a good way to look at things. And March and April, it was 123. May, it was 76. So he struggled in May. And then June, 114. July, 164. So he's really only had that one down month where it seemed like everybody had a down month. So I think that he's kind of the lifeblood of the offense right now, hitting in the middle of the order. So they need him to go over that number if they're going to make a run in the second half. That's for sure.
Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, Craig and Bryce kind of said it all. I'm amazed he's over right now, considering how cold he was. But he did get hot there right before the break. So happy to be on the right side of history on this one.
Nick, it looks like the OPS projection was 796, and he's currently sitting at 778.
Yeah. That's just such a testament to kind of how down offense has been. This has been something I've been trying to tell people on Chatterbox Reds when they're like, this offense is the worst in baseball. And I'm like, I tell you what, I bet there's 20 fan bases across baseball that think their offense is absolutely atrocious this year. It's miserable to watch because the Reds, they don't rank that bad. I don't know where they're at the All-Star break, but they were like 16th in OPS here at some point recently. They're in like the top 12, I think, in home runs or something like that. So Spencer Steer is like the poster child of how much offense is down. But I do have a little bit of a hot take here on Steer. I like Steer a lot, but he keeps getting labeled as the most consistent player, and Ellie gets labeled as the inconsistent player. I think it's almost the other way around. I feel like Spencer Steer's been more inconsistent than Ellie De La Cruz. If you actually look at like the month by month numbers, Ellie gets hotter when he's hotter, which I think makes it feel like that. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I will say Ellie's month of May was lower than Steer. So Ellie had a 66 WRC plus in May. Steer had a 74. So, I mean, they both got hot and cold at the same time. But like you said, Ellie's hot streaks have been longer and a little bit hotter, because I think Ellie's OPS is like 820, where Steer's is like 775 or whatever that may be. So he's definitely gotten hotter quicker there.
Yeah. So Nick, to your point, the Reds are 17th in OPS in the majors and 14th in home runs right now.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. That's just kind of where where baseball is this year. Jonathan India, 103 OPS plus at the All-Star break. Jonathan India is at 124. If you would have told me about a month ago that I was going to be on the right side of this and be on the right side by a country mile, I would have laughed at you. But I am on the right side of this somehow, some way, as is Craig. Bryce and Reds in 4. You're on the wrong side. I don't know who jump in, whoever wants to go first. It's just, I don't know if I can remember a player like Jonathan India that had several years of established baseball kind of look so lost in the water and then play like an all-star for almost 2 months.
Well, I think the thing that has stood out to me is that when we talked about Jonathan India in this offseason, we talked about the fact that I felt like the whole goal for the Cincinnati Reds this year was going to be to put him in better situations to enable him to be better offensively by not having to face as many right-handed pitchers and all of these things. But instead, Jonathan India has gone out and just dominated day in and day out and been your everyday second baseman, which nobody really expected coming into the season. I think, there was all the talk about moving to the outfield, and there was all the talk about platooning and the fact that he would split all of these things. But I mean, when you look at it, he's hitting right-handed pitching 261 with an OPS of 773. I mean, 6 of his home runs have come against right-handed pitching. I mean, in general, he's performed much better than I think anybody would have expected. And it's been every day, and that's been the surprise to me.
Yeah, I think when we went through for India previously, my call out was like, everybody seems to be saying everything is fine a little bit too much in the preseason. They're like, oh, no, it's fine. We're extending him. We're happy he's here, all this stuff. Well, then, sure enough, he becomes the most essential player on the team, and he's played every single day at second base. So it's funny how these things work out. I'm thrilled to see him performing the way he is. And really the biggest thing, and it's nice having access to this data, has been watching his bat speed over time. He is swinging harder than we've ever seen him swing before in his pro career. So he is, I mean, all props go to India. He's remade himself as a hitter. He's swinging more aggressively and faster, but he's more patient at the plate too. Like his walk rate is up. So it's just a really good combination. He's a really good hitter right now. We don't have to get into the trade talks because that will derail us for like an hour. But I'm just happy the guy's back to what we know he can do. So
we haven't really
to be on the wrong side of history here.
We haven't really covered Jonathan in any trade talks here at Chatterbox Sports, so maybe we should spend the next hour on it. All right, let's move on to Tyler Stevenson. Well, 1.6 WAR projection. Now were we doing the Fangraphs or the Baseball Reference? I don't even remember. Anyone know?
Fangraphs.
Okay, we're doing Fangraphs. So Tyler Stevenson currently tied for the third highest position player on the Reds at 1.4. So hopefully I can get a 0.3 or better second half from Tyler Stevenson. Tyler Stevenson, I mean, when you look at this projection, I think it kind of really shows where Tyler Stevenson was. And it's been an up and down year for him. I feel like there's been times where we felt great about him. There's been, I think, times we maybe felt more okay about him. But he did end the first half really strong. And I don't know. Tyler Stevenson completely remade himself as a player. It's just funny. Jonathan India and Tyler Stevenson were the Reds' top 2 dogs after 2021. They felt like our cornerstone pieces, and then they completely both, in their own way, kind of fell out of graces. And not Ellie De La Cruz, but Matt McLain and Christian Encarnacion Strand and all these new shiny prospects come back. Well, McLain and CES get hurt, and now Stevenson and India are having these resurgent seasons. And it's just it's wild, the ups and downs of baseball, the highs and lows from even year to year. Mitch, I'll start with you. Tyler Stevenson, his first half, your thoughts.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I felt so confident going in the under here because of his defense. I thought that was going to hold him back in terms of Fangraphs WAR, especially because they really factor defense in for their catchers. And that's been like his biggest stride forward this year is that he's, I think, catching at like a league average rate, which league average for Tyler Stevenson compared to where he was is leaps and bounds compared to where he was before. So that is huge. I think it's been really meaningful for the team as well. You've mentioned his bat has been sort of inconsistent. It's came and it's gone. He's pulled barrels. He's gone back to his oppo stuff. But I think just what he's done consistently behind the plate this year, I personally didn't see it coming. I thought we were going to have to start thinking of other plans there, but no, he's worked his way back into the good graces of the fan base, and I'm happy for it.
Craig?
I mean, yeah, the biggest thing has been the change defensively. If you look at his 2023 MLB percentage rankings, I mean, he was near the bottom in every defensive category. And, not only has his blocks significantly increased, his blocks above average, but his frame rate has also significantly increased, which not only helps him, but is helping this pitching staff as well. So, I really like what Tyler Stephenson's brought as not only everyday offensive ability, but just defensively as well, and what he brings to the pitching staff.
Bryce?
Yeah. I think that Tyler's he's gotten to that, okay, you can probably go forward with him as your starting catcher. He's not one of the worst catchers in the league. He's not like this great hitting catcher that's not a very good defensive catcher. He's kind of just okay at both, or good at both, or decent at both. So like that's what you need as a starting catcher in the big leagues. I think everybody strives for the Wilson Contrerases and the William Contrerases and all these great guys that do both, but it's not super realistic to have that. And obviously you hope you have that in the system with Duno and those other guys. But I think right now, I think this team is perfectly good with Tyler Stephenson being their starting catcher, and I'm good with that as well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was just drinking the Kool-Aid or not, but I was really hopeful that Tyler Stephenson with this offseason would be able to make some big strides defensively, because this was the first normal offseason that he's had since he was in the minor leagues with the shoulder injury, with COVID, with all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it was an accident that he improved. I think this guy worked his tail off all offseason. I just don't think you improve that much as a catcher, by good luck or just natural development. I think he put in a ton of work, and I think it shows. And I feel good about Tyler Stephenson. If the Reds got a solid number 2 catcher, I think you'd feel even better about Stephenson. I think the fact that Luke Maile struggled, and I know Austin Wynns has done pretty well in a very, very, very short sample. I think if Maile was playing like Maile played last year, I think we'd really feel good about the catcher position. All right, CES. Congrats, Craig, on a cheap win. He played 6 games this year. So congrats, Craig, on that one. Will Benson. This is kind of funny. We could maybe pick the only stat that Will Benson actually goes over on if he has a big second half. He picked 66 walks because I remember Zips was so low on Will Benson, and I hate to give Zips credit because of the Candelario stuff, but they might have been they might have really beat us on Benson, and I haven't given up on Benson by any means. I think he's going to have a big second half. I really believe that. I think he's going to settle into his role more. But Benson's at 30 walks. You need 36 in 64 games. Probably not going to happen, but it's at least maybe going to be interesting. Craig, I'll start with you. I don't know. We've talked about Will Benson so much. I don't know. Any thoughts? I felt like there was some moments he was looking better of late. It just hasn't all come together for him.
Where do you even begin? I don't know. Will Benson was asked to do a lot more this season than I think we anticipated when we talked about this during the offseason. So that alone, the fact that he's played a lot more games than maybe we anticipated due to injuries and otherwise has probably led to some inflated numbers. Will Benson might be a lot more valuable to this team if he took a couple more walks than he does now and stopped swinging through pitches. But we'll see what happens with Will Benson in the second half of the season. I'm not so sure that he's a long-term plan right now.
Bryce?
Yeah, I think that last sentence says it well. I think that he might be on the send down list here coming up soon if he's not careful. So, obviously, you got to see what old Mr. Hines is after the break and if he turns back into a pumpkin. But I think that's probably going to be the dilemma once Friedel's back, because Fairchild's back on Friday, and then you're kind of deciding on who the outfielder is. Is it Marte? Who is it? Because the roster is starting to look more complete now than it has all year. So it's really starting to get interesting on who's going to be that call down or whoever it is, because I think there's a couple guys that could use it right now, and could use some time away to work on some things.
Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, I echo mostly what everybody's saying. Obviously, a little disappointed in Benson. I think we called out on the original pod that he was due for a little bit of regression, like he'd outpaced his BABIP a little bit. His strikeout rate was higher than people kind of thought if you looked at his batting average last year, but I don't think any of us saw this coming. I mean, he's just kind of looking like a shell of himself right now. So I don't know how you get him back. Maybe the time off over the break is what resets him. Maybe it's Louisville. I don't think they can afford to put him in Louisville right now, all things considered, but it's a new half. We will see what we get from him here on out.
Does have 2 home runs in his last 26 at-bats, so I think there's a chance. And again, his OPS against right-handed pitching is still almost at 700. So I just, the amount of at-bats that he got early in the year against left-handed pitching, I said it several times on the show, I think that was the biggest mistake the Reds made, was they tried to make him something he wasn't. And I think it completely got in his head, and it completely hurt his confidence. And I think that was a major reason why he's, struggled as much as he is. So he has played pretty good defense though. So that's been a positive. But like Mitch said, I'm hopeful that this reset, he could come back and get on fire, because I know Rhys Hines has been on fire, but I don't think there's another player that really has the potential that Benson has to get really hot in the second half and kind of provide what Benson can provide for this team. All right, on to Noelvi Marte. So Craig, for your cheap loss on CES, you got a cheap you got a cheap win here, unless Noelvi Marte. If Noelvi Marte hits this over, we'll be printing World Series tickets, I think, even though Noelvi won't get to play. He has one, right? Did he get a second one?
No, he has one.
Just one. Yeah. I don't know. Any you don't have any thoughts on Noelvi Marte? I don't.
I got a lot of thoughts, but I think it may take too long. It's just been so bad. It like, he's had 2 games where you're like, oh, that looks really good. That looks like Marte, who we know and love. But then every other at bat has just been bad and really bad. Like, it's just not even competitive at times. So I think that's the frustrating part for me, is like, he had all this time. I get it. He doesn't get to face big league pitching, but it didn't feel like he really took advantage of the opportunity down in Louisville to really kind of get ready and take that time to get going. And it's just been so blah. It's like, honestly, to bring back bad memories, but it almost feels like Jose Barrero in like 2020, 2021, where it just totally overmatched in every at bat. So I hope he can come out of it. I know he's a better hitter than what he's shown. So we'll see. We'll see how what the second half brings.
The thing that's been frustrating for me, obviously the suspension, whatever. The thing that's been frustrating for me has been how terrible he's been defensively. I think we all expected some growing pains offensively for him this year. I don't think anybody really expected him to continue his 19-game hitting streak and, set the world on fire offensively, continue to do that. But to have a -5 outs above average after playing 20 games or whatever he's at this year, like, just completely inexcusable from a guy. Like, defense is supposed to be one of those things that doesn't go away, right? So that's been the frustrating part to me, is regardless of offensive struggles, the fact that he's not anywhere near where he should be defensively right now after that is the bigger concern to me, because he's supposed to be your everyday third baseman for years to come.
All right, and then our last offensive projection, the ultimate kiss of death we gave to Jake Fraley in his career. I feel like I might want to, I don't know if I want to watch back whatever we said about that, but I feel like we all went so far overboard on that it's 100% our fault. I think we have to take responsibility. We have to be accountable for what we did to Jake Fraley. I don't know. I hope Jake Fraley can get hot. And there was a couple swings down in the last few games that I thought maybe there's something coming around with that, but I don't know. It's been a tough go for Jake, and obviously all the caveats to everything that he's been going through this season. Just it's hard to even imagine what he's gone through, personally. But just from a production standpoint, it's been a struggle.
Yeah, it almost feels like one of those years to where he's been so consistent throughout his big league career against right-handed pitching, especially that like you just want to, how much he's going through. He's been sick as well on top of everything. You almost just want to call it a wash, but unfortunately, it's the big leagues and people expect you to perform, and it's just part of it. And I feel for him. I can only imagine what he's going through and dealing with that on a daily basis, along with trying to perform at the highest level at the hardest game in the world as well. So I feel for Jake. I hope, like you said, he can get hot and be himself. And I think that will really kind of boost his spirits as well, because I know he's probably dealing with a lot of things on the baseball front and the family side as well.
I mean, on the positive end, I mean, he's still producing offensively. I mean, I realize that he's not hitting for power. He's got 11 extra base hits this year, which is insane to think about. But he's also, hitting 277 and on base 330. And, his OPS is super low. He's not hitting per power, but like he's getting on base. He's still providing value. And defensively, he's still extremely solid in the outfield. So, like, I see a role for him on this team. It's just, I don't think any of us foresaw this happening a season after that. He hit 15 home runs last year.
Yeah, we're wading into a little bit of my bold takes for later, but I mean, under the hood, everything except the hard hit rate looks okay. And that's something that can be predictive until it's not. So, I mean, if things get straightened out, like personally and all that stuff, he's still the type of hitter who can go on a hot streak and kind of salvage a good season out of this, because the floor is still high, even if he's not hitting for power. But I'm still bullish on Fraley. I think he's just going through a lot, but like under the hood, things still look kind of okay.
All right, very good. Well, we got through the hitters. I think it took about half the time it took us on the first show, so we're doing good. Pitchers, we're going to maybe hit the send button on a couple of them. So we're not here all night, but we'll get to that in just a second. That looks weird, but
Nick, you don't want to dive real deep into Brandon Williamson's 0 WAR and Connor Phillips's 0 WAR and some of the other ones that we looked at. No,
I don't think we need to do it, but I do want to tell you though about the Game Time app. Because the Reds will be back in town. Now, they only have one home series before the trade deadline, which is very interesting. But the Reds are going to be back in town here at some point. Obviously, FC Cincinnati, I believe they're going on right now. Shout out to them for not hitting the over tonight. Really appreciated that a lot. But if you want to head down to FC Cincinnati, you want to head down to a Reds game, be sure to use the Game Time app, because the Game Time app is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. That makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They have all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature, and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the code CINCY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CINCY, CINCY, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime at all, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether in an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right. And then, as mentioned, we'll get to some questions here at the end. We're going to run through the pitching projections and kind of our thoughts on some of those players and how their season has gone so far. So here we go. Here is the pitching. The pitching projections are our predictions going into the season. Andrew Abbott. Looks like Reds in 4 was the only one that got Abbott maybe right. Abbott really only 0.8.
He's only at 0.8. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't believe that. What is he? What is he? He's got to be crazy high in Baseball Reference, huh?
He's like 3.3 on Baseball Reference. It's the strikeouts and walks. Fangraphs hates him.
I don't even know what do you even say about that projection. Then, like, I mean, what a wild season. I don't know, Mitch. You get a lot of.
I'm being robbed. Nick. There's no other way to put it. Yeah.
You're being robbed as the Abbott homer, which is kind of funny.
Well, and the funny thing is, I went with the over because I thought the Fangraphs would like him more because I thought he would keep the walks down. So I don't know. You think you figure out a system, the system comes back and gets you. I got nothing else to add. He's been solid this year. I think if he looks more like he did in his final outing, that F4 total is going to move up. And it's just kind of a matter of getting those totals back. But I don't know. I feel good about where my head was at, even if it's not going to hit.
This feels like the steer for me. Like I feel like I was right on the not the right. I don't want the correct side of steer, but it's not panning out. So yeah, that's a wild one. Anyone else got thoughts on Abbott?
4.90 FIP. That's why his Fangraph score is so high. It's almost 5. That's absurd.
Yeah, that's. I feel like he's right I feel like he's in the middle of that. Like I feel like he is the absolute prototype pitcher that he's not as good as his ERA suggests, but he's not nearly as bad as like his FIP suggests. There's no way. I don't believe either one of them. I don't know. What a weird season and a weird projection there. Hunter Green, the over-under was 169 strikeouts. Hunter is at 126. I think we picked this one because this was, again, maybe the most somewhat challenging one because I think his ERA projection was really high and everything else. But we all hammered the over, and we're all right there. Obviously, Hunter really
If I remember correctly, I think you guys were ready to go under on this, and then I broke out some math and told you guys what he had to do, and you guys all switched. So I'll take full credit here. It should have been a lone wolf. I should have been all alone on this one. You guys were followers. You were sheep, and but that's okay. We'll allow it on this one. It's interesting. I mean, he's striking out like 27.6% of his batter space, which is like 10% lower than his last 2 seasons. So like relatively his strikeout numbers are actually kind of down, but he's been consistent. He hasn't been hurt. Like, so there's a lot of things, knock on wood here. I think a lot of things have gone his way so far. So we'll see. I don't think there's any question he's going to get to 169 though, right?
Well, I mean,
now I jinxed it.
Assuming health. That's always with pitchers. You can never just assume that. So, obviously hope that his arm holds up, which there's no signs that it wouldn't. But all right, Nick Martinez, he's real close. 4.04. He is at 3.88 at the break. Me and Mitch were over. Bryce and Craig were under. This is going to be, I feel like how many starts he gets is going to determine if this is over or under.
Yeah, ERA as a starter in 5 games, 7.36. 23 games as a reliever, 1.94. So it's been a pretty crazy splits with those two. It feels to me like David Bell has settled with him being out of the bullpen. I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot of Nick Martinez starting games moving forward.
Any other thoughts on Martinez and kind of an interesting year from him?
Yeah, it's funny to see myself over on Martinez. I think the more I dug into him, the more I liked him, and I'm surprised I was over a 4.04. But I think the gist of it was I thought he'd have some trouble adjusting the GABP, and he kind of has as a starter. I think home runs got him a little bit, but to Craig's point, I think it's going to come down to how many games he starts. I don't think he's a 7 ERA starter either. Like, I think that number's due to drop a little bit, but I don't know. I'm a big Nick Martinez fan. It's strange to be on a bet that's rooting against him, but happy to be wrong.
You're not rooting against him.
No.
Let's clarify that. We don't need you clipped up here, Mitch.
No,
you're rooting against Nick Martinez.
That'd kill my whole brand, Nick. Come
on. We're not about brand killing around here. All right, Frankie Montas, 1.5 F WAR. Montas is at 0.8 at the break. So I guess he's on pace to be slightly below that. Man, that's going to probably come really right down to the wire. I think Montas has been a success for the Reds. I think just the fact that he stayed healthy. I know like his ERA is 4.38. That's pretty close to league average. When you sign a guy and you don't have to commit anything really beyond this year, maybe he picks up the option. But I mean, I don't even know if that's going to happen. I think overall you have to feel good about Montas. And I feel like there is the potential that he can go on a run because we've seen him at times have some really dominant starts. He just hasn't been able to put 4 or 5 of those together in a row. But I think there's a good chance that he does do that in the second half. Craig, do you agree with that?
Well, I think he started to put together some really good outings at the beginning of June and kind of settled in there. Obviously, his last outing, I mean, he went 7 innings against Colorado on July 10th, but he gave up the 5 earned runs. My gut said that we know what Montas is. I don't think he's the Montas that we saw on June 4th when he went 7 innings of 1-hit baseball. I think he's much more similar to the next 3 starts where he gave us anywhere from 5 to 6 innings and 1 to 3 runs. And I think realistically, what we need out of Montas is to be a solid 4 or 5 starter in this rotation. And whether he gets to 1.5 WAR or not, I don't know, but I think he's going to continue to fill a need for this team and a veteran presence as we continue to roll out young pitchers day in and day out.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. He's been, I think he's even been better than his numbers have shown. He's had like one or two really bad starts to where it just inflated everything. He had one in Seattle where he gave up 5 runs in like 2 innings. And like those starts are just ERA killers, especially in a short stint of a season like this. So I think overall he's given the Reds stability. He's mostly taken the ball every time and gone out there. And that's what I was hoping for whenever you signed him off shoulder surgery. So he definitely has room for improvement. Like you said, Craig, I think he's starting to kind of feel himself a little bit. He's starting to stack some more quality starts. His stuff looks better. He's up to like 99 the other day, and I just never thought we would see that Frankie Montas again. So that was really cool to see for him. And I think he's a guy that we may look up next year, and he's having an even better year, and he's progressed even more and kind of a year and a half, 2 years past shoulder surgery. Normally it's kind of when guys start to hit their stride.
Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, I lone wolfed this one. Mainly my concern was with injury. And 1.5 WAR is a hard number to get to for starting pitchers. Like that's a solid season. That's like a good number 4 starter. I still think he has a chance to hit that. I do think there are times when I go to look at Frankie Montas's ERA and I can't believe it's only 4.3. Like maybe I just think of the bad starts too much and don't remember the good starts enough, but I feel like he's been a little underwhelming at times, especially under the hood. Like his fastballs, even when they pick up velocity, they're not really grading all that well. But I mean, in the end, I think there's still a good chance he can accumulate like a good season at the end here. And he's done what they needed them to do. And it's honestly, it sounded like he's been a good veteran presence for a lot of the guys in the rotation too. So still like the signing. Don't know if he's going to hit that WAR projection, but we'll see.
All right, I'm gonna just skip through the next 2. Brandon Williamson. I guess we gave Brandon Williamson the kiss of death, but maybe in a bad way. I don't know. He obviously hasn't pitched. It's looking unlikely that he's gonna pitch. Maybe best case scenario comes back in September. But even then, I mean, probably not. Maybe he's even in a relieving role if the Reds have a need for that. Alexis Diaz, 4.3 walks per 9. Alexis Diaz at 5.6. So that was a pretty easy over. That was the weirdest. I can't believe the Zips projection was that low on that one. Nick Lodolo at 10.8 strikeouts per 9 innings was the projection. Lodolo is actually under at 9.31. Kind of strange almost in a way that he's been, so good with his strikeouts being so low below his projection. Mitch, do you have any thoughts on that? It's kind of wild to see Lodolo being back and being so effective for the Reds, and strikeouts being almost a full 1.5 below the average per the projected per 9 innings.
Yeah, it's funny because we thought we knew Lodolo, and I still feel like we do know Lodolo. But even with Stuff Plus like updating over the year, it was supposed to boost left-handers. It was supposed to pick up like breaking pitches really well. For some reason, it's never loved his curveball like all year. And we, as Reds fans, like we think that curveball is a nasty pitch. Batters look foolish against it, but it's not generating the same whiffs that it used to. And his changeups and his fastballs, I think he's getting some whiffs on the four-seamer, but he's just not really tapping into as many strikeouts as we're used to right now. And I can't really point to why that is other than like maybe the league's getting more tape on him and, the stuff is kind of starting to regress. I think in the long run, though, I mean, we've seen him dominate. I have faith in the Reds kind of tapping into whatever hitters might be picking up on. And at the same time, I think a lot of his poor starts have also been when he's battling through blisters, when like his skin is falling off, but they tell us it's not a blister, weird starts like that. I don't know. It's going to be tough to get over that number considering where he's at right now, but I still, I love Lodolo long term, but we'll just see how it goes.
I skipped over Graham Ashcraft. My apologies to Graham and his family. Mitch, I cannot believe you took the over on his strikeouts per 9 innings. That does not feel like a Mitch decision. The projection was 7.6. Ashcraft is at 6.63. Mitch, what
I
were
want
you
to defend
thinking
this
there?
one. Yeah, I want to defend this one. I was a little scared when you jumped over it. Yeah, I wasn't going to get a chance to defend it. I called out at the time. I thought there was maybe a chance. We saw Ashcraft in the bullpen with how many arms that were in the rotation. I thought, maybe I'm going to sneak one over on these guys. He's going to be a reliever that K9's going to jump. Has not happened yet, but we're not ruling it out on the comeback from the flexor strain. But yeah, looking a little dicey there. That was one against the brain, one with the gut, and my gut never knows anything. So we'll learn. We're learning.
Although I was gonna say you might still have a chance though, because there's a real possibility that he does come back in the bullpen. Now I don't know if he'll be able to strike out enough batters to get that up, but if he does come back in a relieving role, I would take that over projection as a reliever right now, because I do think he would strike out more batters in shorter spurts, like you said.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I'm smart or not. We'll see.
Connor Phillips, 1.0 WAR projection. There's still time. If Connor Phillips puts up above a 1 win above replacement for the Reds this year, that would be one of the craziest stories in the history of sports. Yeah, I don't have anything on Phillips. Anyone got anything? I hope. I haven't even heard it. Have anyone heard anything about the Arizona complex? I don't think he's pitched down there. I'm assuming they just have him working on the backfields or something right now. I'm fascinated to see kind of what they do with him.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one to follow because he's so freaking talented. It's insane. He's got such good stuff. We've all seen it before. He literally went out and pitched extremely well in the big leagues, not even a year ago, not even 12 months ago. It's so weird to me that he just completely lost it. So, yeah, I mean, for the Reds' sake, I hope Connor Phillips was able to figure out at least enough to be a quality reliever, even if it's not in a starting type position. So we'll see. I hope that this trip to Arizona fixes him, but I definitely have my doubts currently.
Fernando Cruz. Somehow we have been wrong on Fernando Cruz. And if you would have told us that about a month ago, we would have thought we would have been right there. So Cruz's projected ERA was 4.14. We all smashed the under on that. It was looking great, and then a rough stretch leading up to the All-Star break. He's at 4.65, and I think he's been the Reds' best reliever. It's Fernando Cruz is maybe the perfect example of how looking at a reliever's ERA can kind of be a fool's errand at time, where you really need to look at a lot more than just their ERA. I don't know. I mean, I think Cruz has been great. I do think Cruz has been used too much. I think the Reds and David Bell, I think maybe Bell's biggest mistake this year has been just being so reliant on him. And I get why, because the Reds' margin for error felt so thin at times. But, I mean, there's a possibility that you may have, I don't know, you may have run him into the ground early in the year, because he's going to hit his career high in games pitched probably before you get into the mid-August.
Yeah, that was my big concern with him as well. It's like, you love when he's on and he's dominant and you can see it. It's like, wow, this guy is unhittable, especially with the split going. So he's got to make an adjustment. Obviously, his fastball has never been good. Like, I think we've talked about that. It's like he tries to throw that cutter, he tries to throw the four seam, and neither of them are good pitches. And it's just a matter of he has to complement those well by throwing his splitter for a strike. And now his throwing a splitter for a strike and it's getting hit. So, like, he just got to find a common ground there of like what works, what doesn't. Maybe he starts to get his form back a little bit. I would literally try to avoid throwing him at least until Sunday or Monday this week, until he can kind of just get even more days off. I don't think he's pitched for a couple of days. So, or I guess he pitched Sunday, but you just got to give him some time. He just throws so much. It feels like 4 or 5 days he's in the bullpen warming up. He at least faces one hitter, and in facing one hitter, you still have to warm up. You go out there and you throw your seven warm-up pitches, and then you're in between innings and your adrenaline's going and all those things, and it's still wear and tear on your body. So I think he's got to maybe limit those a little bit, and then just let him try to focus back in on who he is as a pitcher and get back to kind of what made him successful.
We're going to talk about Sam Moll in a little bit. I view Fernando Cruz and Sam Moll a little bit similarly, where like they should be your go-to guys to get like a clutch out or two at the back end of an inning if someone gets in trouble or whatever it may be. When you look at Fernando Cruz's numbers this year, when he's facing a batter with nobody out, he has an OPS against of 736. When that is 2 outs, that number drops all the way down to 619. He just seems to thrive in higher leverage moments, and he's been David Bell's higher leverage guy for a majority of the year. But it felt like as of late that he had started innings rather than coming into high leverage situations like he was earlier in the year. So that's just like anecdotal on my end. That's just the way it feels. But, you know, I think ultimately Cruz is a guy who his ERA is going to fluctuate, like Nick said. I mean, we would have had this conversation at the beginning of the month, his ERA was down below 4, and now it's ballooned up over, 4.6. So we'll revisit this one at the end of the year. I'm still confident that he can get that down under 4.14.
Yeah, I mean, similar to my Abbott F4 pick, I feel like our hearts were in the right place with our pick for how well the player's done this year, but we might lose the bet. But I couldn't be more thrilled with what Fernando Cruz has been for the team this year. He's been incredible. The blow-ups have been, here and there. They just, a lot of runs have come in short stints when they have. So I don't know. What more can you say about Fernando Cruz? He's been great.
And, to Cruz's credit, there's been a lot of times where he's come in and only got 1 out, which has hurt his ERA because he got the biggest out of the game. But when he, it doesn't give him enough wiggle room for later when he does give up runs because, he didn't pitch a full inning. Whereas he probably, his one batter that he got was more effective than if he came in a clean inning and threw up a 0. So, yeah, kind of undeserving ERA for sure for him where he's at. Lyon Richardson, I still have faith that this one could pan out because Nick Kroll mentioned Lyon Richardson as one of the starting pitching depth options in one of his most recent press conferences when he was talking about the Ashcraft injury. So maybe there's still time. Maybe I can sneak out a half win out of Lyon Richardson from like 2 really good starts. He just has 2 dominant starts. They send it back down, and I cash the check. Let's go. TJ Antone. TJ Antone threw 2 innings. He had 2 strikeouts. So TJ Antone is above his K per 9 projection of 8.4. So sorry, Mitch. That's a tough loss. That is you had a 3 against the buzzer hit on you on that one. That's a tough loss. But shout out to TJ Antone for helping us get one right. Emilio Pagan. Emilio Pagan is at 11.51 Ks per 9. And Nick Kirby was out on an island as the only one who took the over on Emilio Pagan. I'm not even really sure why I took Emilio Pagan's over. I guess I thought that the Red. I think my logic was that I thought the Reds believed that they could get his K per 9 up, and that was part of the reason they signed him. And so far, I mean, it's only 20 innings, but so far that has been the case with Pagan, and who knows when we'll even see him again. But yeah. Ian Jabot, he has an ERA of 0, so we all hit the correct one on Ian Jabot. So shout out to us. We nailed that one.
Have anybody seen an update on that? He was supposed to throw a bullpen yesterday. Did anybody? I don't know if we've had a chance to even ask David Bell yet, but any insight on that yet? I haven't seen anything.
No, I didn't even know he was throwing a bullpen. So you're more of ahead of it than me on that one. Began throwing program July 2nd. Said it's going really well. Stretched out throwing on July 4th. Their last update on the actual MLB is July 4th. So whatever you saw is more updated than the actual page at this point. So
yeah. That was from Charlie. So I assume that it was supposed to happen, but who knows?
They're usually pretty good about updating on Reds.com. They have like a running page that Mark Sheldon runs. It's usually pretty well updated, but I guess it hasn't been updated in a little while.
Yeah, so Jabot was supposed to throw a bullpen on the 16th and could be back with the team in the middle of August. Brandon Williamson is scheduled to throw his first bullpen on the 23rd, and he's targeting a return in September. So we'll see.
All right, Lucas Sims. I was honestly kind of surprised he's so far under. When I looked this up, I thought he was probably right about there. But Lucas Sims' projection was 10.8 Ks per 9. He's only at 9.8 right now. Interesting season for Sims. I know Mitch, I'll ask you first about him because I know he grades out really well in like the Stuff Plus models. His like FIP is like 5.29. But he got a 3.38 ERA. Just a very interesting, strange season for Lucas Sims. If you told me Lucas Sims is dominant for the Reds in the second half, I'd be like, yep, I see that. If you told me Lucas Sims gets shelled in the second, I'd be like, yeah, I see that. I could really see Sims's, season going either way. Although I do like Sims long term, and I've been a guy. If the Reds could sign Sims to an extension right now that's very reasonable and team friendly, I'd be all over it. But I just don't know what he'll provide you this season.
Yeah, and I think he's doing things under the hood right now that are going to look better as the season goes on. But the funny thing is, I think it might actually come at the expense of his K9. So I don't know if we're going to get our money back on these bets here, but the cutter that he's added to his arsenal, I think the XBA on the pitch is somewhere in like the low 100s, but a cutter in and of itself isn't a strikeout pitch. Like that is a generate weak contact against left-handers pitch. So what that'll do, I mean, ideally it's going to lower his walk rate because he can command it better than his fastball, but it's going to help lower his ERA as well because I think he's getting destroyed by left-handers right now. So that cutter has unlocked a real kind of new pitch or new way to attack hitters in his arsenal because he just hasn't been able to control his four-seam fastball all year. And with that cutter, it just raises the floor on what he can be as a pitcher. So I'm excited for what Sims is going to do in the second half. And anyone who follows me knows I'm a Lucas Sims apologist, so I'm going to be excited either way. But I really do think like this is a significant sort of step in the right direction for Sims, that new cutter. And the other stuff has just stayed constant and filthy all year.
All right, and then sorry, go ahead, Bryce. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I just think that he might be a guy we see pitching for the Kansas City Royals here in about 2.5 weeks. So
He feels like a Yankee to me, Bryce. I can't shake it. I don't know what it is. I want him to be a Red, but he just feels like a Yankee. I can't describe it.
All right, hold on to that because I do want to quickly discuss trade deadline after we finish this off. So keep those on the back burner because we got to get through Sam Moll. I was surprised that Sam Moll's threw 23 innings. I didn't think he's thrown that many. Craig is right now looking good, but I don't know. With how little he was used, maybe he actually does hit that over. I don't know. Does he have a chance to hit that over?
I don't think so. Here's the thing about Sam Moll is he's been used in 30 games, but he's only pitched 23 innings. And so this is what I talked about at the beginning of the year when we had this show originally, is that he's kind of turned into your situational lefty per se, and come in and got one out here or two outs there, whatever it may be. He's not coming out and pitching a whole lot of like full on innings. All 5 of his last appearances have been under an inning. And he hasn't faced more than 5 batters all year long. So he's only faced 4 or more 7 times. It's just not a guy that right now they're going to for prolonged outings because they don't want him to have to face righties. And so, they're bringing him in situations where he only needs to get 1 or 2 outs, and they're both going to be against left-handed batters, and then he's done for the day. I think that probably continues. You have guys like Suter and Wilson in the bullpen who have been able to get outs against both lefties and righties, who are probably more trusted, I guess, in those situations right now compared to Sam Moll. And he'll probably continue to be kind of the high leverage, get an out or 2 guy, just like Fernando Cruz is from the right-hand side.
Not too fast though, because Moll's only been on the active roster about 8.5 weeks, I think, if I did my math right, because he came up April 23rd, but he got sent down for 11 days in May. So that's just over 2 months, and he's at 23 innings. He's got 2.5 months if he stays healthy. That could really, especially if God forbid there's some other injuries in the bullpen, and Samuel has to be used even more than he is now. I don't know. That might be one. If the Reds are out of it, which I'm hoping they aren't, that might be our best, our most exciting thing to watch the final weekend of the season is how many innings is Sam Moll used, right, Craig?
That's what I'm hanging my hat on. Is I want to be that lone wolf. He threw 8 1/3 innings in the minors this year so far. So combined, he's at 31 1/3. So
he'd be like
maybe
right on the pace, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. Any other thoughts on any of the Reds players that we discussed or didn't discuss? Anyone got any great Rhys Hines takes or anything else before we move on to a couple questions in the trade deadline before we wrap this up?
Is Rhys Hines the best player in baseball?
I mean, is there a doubt? I mean, we all knew it coming up. We knew he was going to, come up and hit well. We've been, saying Nick Kral's an idiot for not calling him up. We've been saying this for months, guys. I don't know why people are shocked by this.
On a serious note, I think it's worth calling out 2 players that weren't there when we did these projections. So Brent Suter and Justin Wilson have been solid this year, and I think to Craig's point, that might cut into Sam Moll's innings projection a little bit there too, having 2 solid lefties hanging around. But we can save that for trade discussions later because I know both of them are on 1-year deals too. But I don't see Suter going anywhere, but we can hold off on that.
And keep in mind, Justin Wilson wasn't with the team for a long period of time as well. And so, Sam Moll was picking up some of those innings when Justin Wilson wasn't available. So there's a lot of factors at play. That innings watch for Sam Moll is going to be a fun one down the stretch there, Nick.
Yeah. And shout out to Buck Farmer and Carson Spires as well. They didn't get on the list, but both of those guys have been really good for the Reds in their roles this year.
And Stuart Fairchild, not on the list, but that's neither here nor there.
I can't believe that Nick didn't put some
forgot about
projections.
Well, I don't think I forgot about him. I think it was that at the time his roster spot was not a guaranteed, and I pretty much only put guys that were roster spots were guaranteed, which I think is why Buck Farmer wasn't on the list because his roster spot wasn't guaranteed, even though I felt like he was going to, because I didn't think the Reds were going to sign him to a major league deal and then not put him on the roster. But I think that was why that they weren't on there particularly. But
you just knew that we knew you would take the over on anything Fairchild. You wanted to, make us work a little bit. I get it.
And I would have been right. I'm pretty sure he's over every single projection. He has to be, right? Maybe not. I don't know. Some of these are weird. Like Fernando Cruz, like you think he's over, and then oh nope, he's actually way under. Interesting. All right, couple questions. Noah Wells. This is for Bryce. Random question, Bryce. How many times have you walked in the kitchen after you just watched a Will Benson try to hit a baseball and just punch a hole right through the fridge in the background?
You have no idea how many times I wanted to. This is my safe space in here because my kids are usually in the living room. So just pop in here and scream in that open pantry right there, that door, and walk back in there and feel good.
Molly asks, when is the trade deadline? The trade deadline is July 31st, or is it August 1st now at 4? They moved it
I hope
around.
it's the end of July. I always hate when they put it at the beginning of
Yeah,
month.
I think they did
like
something.
calendar flips. I don't know.
July 30th.
Is it July 30th at 4 o'clock? July 31st. July 31st, not 30th, right?
Not according to Google.
It says July 30th.
Yep. July 30 trade deadline.
Oh, it is July 30 trade deadline. Okay. So it's usually at 4 o'clock. I don't see a time on it. I'm assuming it's 4 o'clock. Maybe it's 6 o'clock, but I'm sure they're going to have it like in the middle of the day and not like a midnight because they want it to be something that can be covered.
Here we go. The
so
2024 trade deadline is July 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern.
6 p.m. Okay. All right. That's one of those things I got to put on the calendar. I always forget until like a week before, and I'm like, oh, I got to like be available. At that time. So I got to make sure I'm available for that. So yeah, that'll be fascinating because the Reds are playing the Cubs at home at Great American Ballpark, and both of those teams could go completely one direction or completely the other direction, depending on how things is. So the Reds are going to have one game at home before the trade deadline. They have one more game at home, as crazy as that is to think about. So we got a question about the trade deadline. Then maybe we'll get some more general thoughts from Chris R. Who has more trade value, Lucas Sims or Justin Wilson? It has to be Sims, right? I mean, Wilson was DFA'd just like 3 months ago. Anyone disagree with that?
The only thing I'll say is if you look at Wilson's surface level numbers, he doesn't walk anybody. He strikes out a good amount of people, and he's left-handed. So I think that there's probably more of a need for Justin Wilson. Obviously, you can't recreate Lucas Sims' stuff, but you can find a reliever like Lucas Sims probably in a lot of places. But maybe there's not a lot of Justin Wilsons out there that are available to people. So I do think the Reds have kind of more of a reason to trade Justin Wilson too, with them having 3 lefties in the bullpen. So I think there's something to monitor there. But I think they're probably pretty equal overall, honestly.
I agree with what Bryce says. Like peripherals look better technically on Wilson. Stuff likes Lucas Sims more. I like Lucas Sims more, but I'm not an opposing GM. But I don't know. I think both could net you something fun at the deadline. Although the Reds will need them too if they decide to contend.
Yeah, the only thing I'll point out is that Justin Wilson has struggled with injury history over the last 3 or 4 years. So whether or not a team is willing to part with prospects or other pieces in exchange for that will be to seen. Obviously, Lucas Sims back in 2022 missed almost the entire season, so it's not like he's injury proof either. But Justin Wilson has missed time in each of the last 4 years.
Yeah, I would agree that I think that if the Reds are going to, I just think the Reds are going to give away Wilson, and that's probably what they would have to do there.
The question was which has more value, right? Not necessarily which one is more likely to be traded.
Yeah, no, I was just saying in general. I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't even see. I don't know if I see either one of them getting traded, but I don't know if a team's going to give up enough for the Reds to want to give up on Sims. I think the Reds are maybe more likely to trade Sam Mole. Maybe. I mean, I know he's got so much control, which makes him a little interesting. I think the Reds I could see the Reds trading Buck Farmer. I don't really know don't know, maybe Sims is the most expendable. I don't know. It's kind of when you actually like try to go through them, and Sims is on an expiring contract. But I could see. Could you guys see the Reds doing two things at once? Trading a reliever, contending, and like buying a bat.
Yeah. So Nick, I mean, playing off your mole idea, I think the easiest way for them to do that is trading someone like Fernando Cruz, because I mean he has, call it 4.5 years of team control left, kind of similar to what Sam Mole does, and I think he probably carries the most value out of anyone in the bullpen. And I mean, everybody else can see what we're seeing. The wheels are falling off a little bit, but the stuff is still there on the splitter. Like I still think that's enough to entice a team into paying. The Reds paid Joe Boyle for Sam Mole. I think the Reds are a little better at scouting other teams than the A's are, but like that was a legit prospect they got for a reliever. So maybe there's something they can pull on Fernando Cruz trade. I mean, we saw Cole Reagans get moved for Aroldis Chapman last year. Like it's worth picking up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And with the depth of reliever arms that the Reds have shown that they have at their disposal, it certainly is not outside the realm of them killing two birds with one stone, being able to bring up, if they have faith in a guy like Yosver Zulueta to come back up or whatever it may be, Graham Ashcraft out of the bullpen. Like they have a ton of options on how they address the bullpen if they do decide to move one of those controllable, attractive arms in order to try and add a bat like Fernando Cruz or otherwise. So the depth piece really gives them a ton of freedom to do whatever makes the most sense.
Yeah, Bryce, I'm going to tee this one up for you. Zach Maxwell.
Yeah. If that guy's not in the big leagues this year, we're going to have problems. You just got to have that guy in Cincinnati at some point. He's unbelievable. And like you said, Craig, Zulueta, Maxwell, right now they're carrying 9 relievers too. So you have to think about that aspect of things. I mean, they just brought Tony Santillan back to a big league deal, and he doesn't have options. And I don't think they would have just thrown away Tony Santillan because he's going to get picked up if they DFA him. So, I don't feel like they would just throw him away if they didn't have a plan in place with somebody in the bullpen is either getting dealt by the time they have to make that move or somebody's getting sent down or whatever. But I think that there's something on the horizon because they're going to have to – something's going to have to give in that spot there.
I've got an idea here, and I think I might get hated on for it. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe shocked. I wouldn't be totally thrown off if the reliever that the Reds trade at the trade deadline is Zach Maxwell, because Maxwell's never come up to the big leagues. He's maybe you don't know what he's going to do when he gets called up. So he's kind of got this more like intriguing. And so would you maybe take a risk on trading Maxwell if you're getting a big return versus trading a more proven commodity like a Fernando Cruz? Let me ask you this. Let's go around the room. Zach Maxwell or Fernando Cruz, if you had to trade one? You have to trade first? One. Yeah.
Can I steal from the chat from Money Sign Richie Money Sign? I think Alexis Diaz is your little third rail there that you can jump off to in that same sort of vein.
No. You got to pick one of the two.
I know. Zach Maxwell's not on the 40-man roster. Teams don't really trade for guys on the 40-man roster at the deadline. It's a gross move. Like you have to DFA someone when you trade for someone. If they're buying, they would trade Zach Maxwell. If that's kind of what you're getting at, like he's kind of like that prospect you'd move. It's a strange one, but I think you could maybe find a buyer like the Oakland A's who got enticed by Joe Boyle's stuff. You pull that same move off again, and maybe you're cooking with gas. I like the idea for the Reds' perspective. You keep a proven big league arm. You move a prospect with astronomical walk rates, but I don't know. I can, hear out other opinions.
You don't think a contender would be interested in Zach Maxwell? That's their bullpen's a dumpster fire?
Not with a 7 BB9 in AAA and no major league innings. I don't think a fan base would be able to swallow that pill. I think they'd rather have a major league arm.
Well, again, we're also assuming that Maxwell's going to pitch well for the next 2 weeks. So if he pitches well for the next 2 weeks, he's like gone 6 in a row appearances without allowing a walk. So you've at least you can kind of sell him that was just like a just getting promoted thing and he's figured it out. I don't know. I could see a contending team. Samuel almost feels, or that Zach Maxwell almost feels like Samuel. And I know Samuel was already in the big leagues, but he's like the rare reliever that a team like the Reds, where the Reds were last year, where you're acquiring a reliever that has so much control, and you're not like trading for a rental reliever. You're trading for like a prospect that is also can help your big league team. I don't know. I don't know if there's a team out there. Just throwing out the idea, floating it out there. I don't know if there's any actually validity to it or not. But Bryce, Cruz or Maxwell, you have to choose to get rid of one.
We know this answer.
It's like asking me to choose my 2 favorite sons, and I can't do that. I'm just kidding. The only thing I'll say is I truly think Zach Maxwell, if he came to the big leagues right now, he would have the best pure stuff in the Reds bullpen. And I think that there's something to that. And there's something to, yes, he has bad command. I think you watch him and it's ugly at times, but then you watch him these last 7 outings and he's been arguably the best pitcher in AAA, like just what he's been doing. So it's hard. I think it'd be hard to convince a team like, okay, trade for this guy that's never pitched in the big leagues to pitch for your contender versus the other way around. So I think I would keep Maxwell, and then I think you could probably get more for Cruz. I think you could get, like Mitch said, like a true Joe Boyle type prospect, a guy that you can actually see something with prospect wise, and then you have somebody that you feel just as good about back in your pen with Maxwell or even Zulueta or whoever coming back and backfilling that role there. So I think you would have more success trading a proven commodity than a prospect who has concerns.
All right. What other questions did we get here? What scenario comes about when TJ and Stu returns? So Stu returns, Edwin Rios goes down. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's that one. And then when Fairchild returns, there'll probably be an injury. I mean, just being realistic, that opens up that spot because that's how baseball tends to work.
It's the most Nick Kirby answer I've ever heard.
Well, it's true. Okay, I get crushed all the time, but it's true. Okay, like I'm not beating around the bush on it. I don't know. I mean, I guess it would just be who plays better, resigns or Will Benson, probably. I mean, they're going to duke it out.
Or Austin Slater. There's
if both
it didn't
play
cost
well.
much to acquire.
If both Benson and Hines play well, then it'd be Austin Slater. I think.
Yeah, you can have that trade end up with both teams ending up with neither team with neither player on their roster.
Send them to the Mets.
There you go.
There's a good chance we're going to see a lot of Austin Slater. I know teams haven't released their pitching matchups. This is actually a question that we got on Twitter, but there's a good chance the Reds are going to face 2 lefties this weekend against the Nationals, because they only have 4 pitchers in their rotation right now, and 3 of them are lefties. So I think there's a pretty good chance the Reds face at least 2 this weekend. So you're going to see Slater twice. Reds will probably face Max Fried, who was in the All-Star game in the second series. So, I mean, you're probably going to see Slater at least, twice here over the next week. Just run through a couple more questions, and then we'll have to wrap this one up for tonight. India lead off the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they would move him.
Unless he struggles. I mean, don't mess with what's working right now. Pat Friedel 9th.
Yeah. Second even. Hit Ellie 3rd.
Oh, no. Don't take any of that bats away from Ellie.
Easy.
Hit Friedel 3rd then. I don't care.
Who was more valuable? More value at the deadline, Montes or Martinez? I would say Martinez. And I think it's more the intrigue factor because he hasn't. I think teams are going to think they can make him a starter. And he has less of a, I don't know. If Martinez had been a starter all year and had the same numbers as Montes, maybe it's Montes. But I think Martinez just has more intrigue that I think teams are going to think he has more upside than Montes right now.
Does Martinez have a player option, team option, or a mutual option? I can't remember.
Player, I think.
Is it player?
I think so.
I thought he was team for some reason. It would sway the
Yeah, that would change a lot.
A little, yeah.
He's
He
pitching
has
some
the
big
right
games
to opt
too.
out.
Yeah.
It was a 2-year deal with an opt-out, player opt-out.
I wonder what he's going to do because he's pitched to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
He's
I don't know.
It's also worth noting he's making $14 million this year and only slotted for $12 million next year with his opt-out. So my guess is that he's going to opt out. I know that was the next question that someone was asking. I think, to me at least, if he's still with the Reds, it's a no-brainer that he's going to opt out, especially if he continues to pitch like he has. I mean, I know some people think that relievers are a dime a dozen, but proven long-term relievers are not necessarily a dime a dozen. So, we've seen what the pitching market has been over the last year or two, and 12 million seems low for the production that we've gotten out of Nick Martinez.
He's going to have a lot of innings by the end of the year too. Like what they've gotten, his ERA over that many innings. Yeah, I mean, he'll get paid more than 12 million if he keeps this up.
All right. Colin, what is a realistic deal we can make if we were to trade India? If the Reds are in the race, they're not trading India. They'd have to have a really bad couple weeks. I even think if the Reds are in that middle ground where maybe they like soft sell, I don't think India's a part of a soft sell right now. I think it'd be more relievers and maybe even like Montes or Martinez or maybe even Candelario. I don't know. I have no idea what his value is. I have no idea whatsoever.
Go ahead,
Bryce.
The only thing I'll say about India is major league teams aren't dumb. Like they look at the sample sizes and how players are, and like we're talking about 190 plate appearances where he's been great. Don't get me wrong, he's been incredible, but we're talking about 600 plate appearances prior to where he was not really even a league average hitter. So like these teams are going to weigh those things. Obviously his peripherals look great. His underlying numbers look awesome. So like I think he's got more value for the Reds and what they want to do. And obviously I know we joke about it, but he's obviously a very good leader and people look up to him and he does a lot for the organization and this young team. And like a lot of people look to him. So I think he just has so many like small valuable things to a baseball team that maybe his quantifiable numbers don't really show.
I think he means more to the Reds than he does to other teams. And that's like it's a real thing, no matter how many times you really don't think it is. And Chris in the chat already beat me to it. The one thing that is intriguing is there are so few infielders out there that teams are willing to trade for. Like Jazz Chisholm is considering moving back to second base. Yeah. And he's been a solid center fielder. He's been out there for multiple years. They're trying to move him to second because it's that bad out there for middle infielders on the market right now. That's the only thing. Like maybe a team calls him up, they give them an offer they can't refuse. But I really do at the end of the day think India just means more to the Reds and what they're trying to do and what he means to the other players than he's going to mean to another team trying to buy him.
Yeah, you're almost going to have to find another Tyler Naquin to the Mets type situation where you just completely pull one over on a team. I agree with Bryce. I think that I think the other GMs are very smart people, and the reasons that people want to trade Jonathan India, they know that, they understand that. So again, it's gonna completely depend on what the market looks like, and maybe the more teams that are in the race, maybe the bigger the market because there's just no one available. But let's do this. Odds that he gets traded. I'm going to say 15%.
I think you're spot on. I don't even think I'd move it.
I think it's more like 14.
Craig?
Yeah,
under. $1?
Under. I think it's low. I mean, I think that they had an opportunity this offseason to try and look to move him. Everything that we've heard is that they didn't even entertain those conversations. And there's no way that they value him less now than they did this offseason when they were looking at potentially moving him to the outfield. So for me, it's probably even lower than that. There's definitely going to be a shortage of infielders that are on the block, but that this is going to be the most ridiculous thing that might be said all night, but that's going to drive the interest in a guy like Santiago Espinal just as much as it does a guy like Jonathan India. And so like, I realize that like to us, nobody's going to look at Santiago Espinal and be like, yeah, that's a guy I need. But if you look at the available market, he may still be one of the most reliable defensive middle infielders that's going to be available. And so the performance of Jonathan India, if anything, has opened up your ability to maybe explore moving Santiago Espinal more than it's been you're going to move Jonathan India.
That's a good point, Craig.
All right.
Look at me being smart.
You're very smart. All right. Mark asks, when will they pay India when the bill comes due? The Reds still have 2 more years of control of India. One's already paid for. It's the 4 or 5 million next year. And then he still has a year of actual arbitration. Probably is in like the 7-8 million range. He's still affordable the next 2 years. And if he walks as a free agent in 3 years and you shake his hand, say thank you. I don't think I'm in a rush to trade him just because he's like an expiring contract in 3 years or because he's going to get too expensive. I think he's fine for kind of what he's at right now. All right. And then one last question we'll get to here before we get to our bold predictions. What are 2 teams in the wild card race other than the Braves that you are most worried about? I would say the Diamondbacks. I want to say the Pirates. My heart wants to say the Pirates, but I think they're going to shut guys down or guys are going to slow down in their rotation. I'm going to go with the Padres as much as I hate it. I mean, I just think those are the 2 most talented teams that are in the race. What is your guys' thoughts?
I can't believe you're just going to gloss over the Pirates. I mean, to me, I think the pitching staff alone makes them. Well, I mean, maybe not gloss over them, but I still think that the Pirates are poised to potentially finish second in this division, and certainly going to challenge for a wild card spot with the starting pitching that they've had so far. So don't overlook that team. I mean, I know that they historically have fallen off, but I don't know. It's really hard to sit guys when you're competing for a playoff spot. It's a lot easier to pull guys and make them sit when you're cellar dwellers.
Sure, but Jared Jones is already on the IL. That's more my point is not necessarily will they just Steven Strasburg these guys as much as like these guys have never pitched a full big league season or even like a half of a big league season. So it's like with Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo at the beginning, like you just have no idea what they're going to do at the end. So I like the Pirates. I was higher on the Pirates than everyone in the beginning of the season. I like what they're doing. I want to say them because I think what they're doing is great. I think they're doing everything from the front office standpoint. They're doing everything right. When I look realistically, I think it has to be the Padres and the Diamondbacks.
You guys want a hot take?
Yeah.
I don't think the Braves are that good.
I don't either.
Do you ever like go on Braves Twitter? They're just capitulating over there. They think they're going to be sellers at the deadline. They're they're talking about like a soft sell because they don't have Acuna this year. There's just something going on over there. I don't think they're going to fall out of the wild card race, but yeah, I'm not like, shaking in my boots with the series coming up against them. Otherwise, a team that hasn't been brought up is the Mets. I don't think they're the best team of the bunch, but by win differential, they look legit. They have good pitching. They've shown they can develop pitching. And they kind of have a depth of like AAA guys sitting around that they can either call up if someone gets hurt or that they can trade and get like a real player if they decide they're going to go for it. Like like Brett Beatty. I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy, but maybe they can trade him for someone who is a guy. But other than that, I saw the Cardinals get brought up. And again, I'm just going to keep saying clippable things for you guys to get views, Nick. I want the Cardinals to keep winning a couple games here in July to convince themselves that they're buyers. And then I want them to fall so hard on their face in August and September that it's going to just crater their franchise. That's
the 2023 Chicago Cubs.
Absolute cinema, Nick. Yeah. Yeah. And why don't we get the Cubs buying too while we're at it? Let's get them buying. Let's get everybody buying.
Brewers, this is your year. Brewers, this is your year. Blow the farm system.
Yeah. Totally. Trade for Corbin Burns.
Your original point though on the Braves, they have a big cushion. I mean, they're 5 games comfortably in the playoffs right now, but that team has one big losing streak. I don't know if they have the team that is a for surefire going to just, bounce back and overcome that without Acuna. And like Ronaldo Lopez, like, has been incredible, but is he really going to do that all year? I think that could open up a spot. And if you're a team like the Reds, like, you get in the playoffs as the fifth or sixth team, and your first series is against the Braves or Lord forgive me, the Brewers. I mean, I think he's still feeling pretty decent about like your chances in the playoffs on the road.
And how much do you trust Chris Sale's arm to last all year?
Yeah.
And you're going to ride. I love Spencer Schwellenbach, but you're going to ride him as your number 2 all the way to the playoffs. I'm just saying. Don't send me over to Braves Twitter. Don't send these clips anywhere. But I'm just putting it out
there. I'll say 2 teams just. The Padres and the Mets for 2 reasons. The Mets have a crazy owner, and he'll probably ask to do whatever and push in the chips because they have a $350 million payroll. And then I'll say the Padres because AJ Preller is a madman, and he'll probably trade every prospect he's ever owned for a guy that's going to push him to 84 wins and make the playoffs. So I think those are the 2 teams that I think are probably – they're not going to go away, is what I'll say. I think they're the 2 most sustainable teams here down the stretch.
I really do, though, think it's like those, like the teams that are in the wild card from the Braves all the way down to like the Cubs. Like, it's almost flip of a coin who gets hot over a couple weeks and flips the whole race. Like, it's the margin between all of those teams, I don't think is very big.
No. Yeah, I agree.
None of us talked about the Giants. They still exist. Blake Snell is healthy.
Yeah.
They beat the Reds 2 out of 3. We can't sleep on them either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be it's gonna be a fascinating. It's gonna feel like we're gonna jump right into the second half, and then we're gonna be like right at the trade deadline. And yeah, I mean, if they, the Reds start off the second half on fire, it's one conversation. If the Reds start out the second half ice cold, it's a totally different conversation. Like, I feel like it's going to come fast and furious which way the Reds are going, and I guess that's kind of what makes it fun. All right, who wants to go first with their hot take? Bold prediction. Do I have to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, set the tone here, Kirby. How bold are we going?
Last year we did a podcast at the All-Star break. I did with Bryce, Mitch, and Clay. The question was, will the Reds win the division? I was the only one who said no. People paid me as an optimistic guy, and I said no. I didn't think it was in the cards. I think your Cincinnati Reds make the playoffs this year. I think the pitching is just too good. I think the Reds are going to wear teams down in August. I think the Reds are going to get in the playoffs.
All right.
Bar.
I don't know how bold that is. I think that's
it's like a 9% chance. It's pretty bold.
Yeah, I get it.
The run differential, Nick. The
run differential. The Reds have scored more runs than the Braves, the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Giants, the Cubs, and they've allowed less runs than every other wild card team that's competing for a spot, with the exception of the Braves. So I don't know. I agree with you, though. I think the pitching staff is the key to the second half. I think that Hunter Green has cemented himself as a top of the rotation guy, and he's going to finish top 5 in the Cy Young voting this year.
Ooh. I love that one.
I like that.
I like it.
All right. This is going to be really hot because hold on, let me look at the numbers before I go. Let me just break it down how hot this take is going to be. All right. The Reds rank 11th in National League WRC plus. So WRC plus is a league average number of 100. Okay. So they're 92 WRC plus right now. They're 8% below league average. In the second half of the season, the Reds will have a 110 or above WRC plus, so 18% higher or more, and they'll have a top 3 offense in the National League. And along with the pitching, they'll go at least 10 games over 500 in the second half, and their offense will be a big part of it.
10. Yes. All right, Mitch.
Guys really backing into me a corner here, having me go last. We're going hot takes, right?
Bold prediction
Bold.
is the more politically
Mhm.
correct way to say this.
The Reds are going to miss the playoffs.
Oh,
I had to go there. You saw what happened last year. You know, I like to tweet that gif of Winston from New Girl, giving that little smile after I say outlandish things like that. Sometimes it's not your year. And maybe this isn't the boldest take in the world, talking about a team that's 47-50 and however many games out of it. Maybe it's just not the year. Maybe they soft sell, we reset, and we're looking at next year. And I get painted as, the biggest apologist for whatever that's going on. But my other bold take is that Matt McLain comes back and is totally fine. It's a pretty significant injury, but it's in his non-throwing shoulder. When you look around the league at other players who have had a similar injury as he had, the first one that stands out is Logan O'Hoppe, the catcher for the Angels. If you're not familiar with O'Hoppe, he's having an incredible year, one of the better catchers in all of baseball, should have been an all-star. And the biggest thing with him is that he did not lose any of his max exit velocity coming back. His barrel rates even improved when he came back. So I think, like, approach-wise, him and McLain look like really similar hitters. They had the exact same injury. I have a lot of faith that McLain's going to come back and kind of hit the ground running, especially compared to like what we've seen from Marte. I think that's going to be kind of the cherry on top at the end of the season. And I only said the first part so I could dunk on myself later, but we'll see.
I don't think we see Matt this season.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Craig, I thought I was depressing. Man.
Oh.
I guess that's my bold take number 2. I don't think we see Matt McLain in 2024.
Dang.
It'll be interesting. I think he will. I think there's more to prove with Matt McLain than maybe like is like on the surface. Like, I think people would like penciled him in as for sure like the second baseman of the future. I think he wants to get back and like, make sure people know, all right, yeah, I'm the guy. You don't need to go trade for someone in the offseason because you can't count on me. I think all those things are kind of working towards Matt McLain feeling like he needs to come back.
They said they have his rehab assignment date picked out already. That's like, I think we see him at the very least, and I think he's gonna make us happy to see him. I'm hanging my hat on that. Everything else can happen. I just want to see Matt McLain.
It's funny. I think they set it for August 15th or 16th, something along those lines. And they normally do 2-week rehab assignments, and that would put him August 31st, and that would, August 31st, and you have to be on the 26-man roster by September 1st to be eligible for the postseason. So like, they really like played it out the right way if they were going to do it. So he could literally go on a full rehab assignment, get back, and be in the big leagues in time to be on the postseason roster if that's the case. So
I do think they could get an exception for him, though, because I think that you are able to get approval for exceptions for that. And pretty much it's basically just so you're not playing any funny games, but a player that was like a part of your system that was coming back from an injury like that. I think that I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I remember other situations where teams are able to get approval for a player. It's basically just so you're not picking someone off waivers and throwing them on the playoff roster. But I think that wouldn't matter. But maybe they just, it's nice if it works out that way. So it's not even a, thought or anything. And obviously you want to probably a month of him to really, get him ramped up anyways. But yeah.
I think there's a lot of factors at play whether or not we see him. I mean, obviously he's got to be healthy. He's got to show out. But, I think there's some pieces in place that allow the Reds not to hurry that. And you're talking about a guy with 89 career games under his belt. And there's a lot of people out there who expect him to come back and be the Matt McLean of the 89 games from last year. But I'm trying to set expectations that as much as we want him to come back and be the Reds' best player like he was last year, there's a lot at stake there, and bringing him back in September in potentially the middle of a playoff run, I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, very good stuff, fellas. Really appreciate your time coming on, and this was a lot of fun. Looking forward to the second half. I think, like I said, it's going to be a wild first week of the second half. Where do the Reds go? Which direction are they in? Week from today, we could feel completely one way about the Reds or a completely different way about the Reds, and I guess that's what kind of makes these games feel almost. And I'm curious if the players will kind of feel almost like this playoff intensity this weekend against the Nationals, which it kind of almost is. It almost is like, are you playing to continue your season or not over the next 6 games? I don't know. Maybe that sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of how I feel. Well, fellas, appreciate it again. As always, if you're watching tonight, thanks so much for doing so. Like the stream on your way out. Really would appreciate that. And then, of course, Chatterbox Reds available everywhere you get podcasts. I'll have a new audio-only podcast available on Friday. Talked with the PR manager for the Chattanooga Lookouts, and then I'll also preview the Reds series against the Nationals. So look for that in your podcast feed on Friday morning. Have a great night. We'll see you on Chatterbox Reds Live on Friday night. Go Reds.